Few seconds
Yeah,
more.
perfect. Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
Good to see you, not like, only as a bot in Anthill,
Yes,
but as a real human as well.
good to see faces.
So let's go. We're live.
Okay,
Okay,
so
great.
we are live, so I should stop chit-chatting and start behaving formally. Hello everyone, and thank you for coming for this workshop for the Zoönomic Instrumentarium by Sjef van Gaalen. Before we start with the actual workshop, this is the actual fun part. I have just a few practical information for all of you attending here at Zoom. So first, please feel free to use the chat if you have any technical or other practical issues during the workshop. I'm here as a moderator, and we also have Anička as a technician. So if you have some issues with video or audio or some other technical problems, just let us know in the chat and we will try to resolve it. And of course, feel free to use the chat to share comments and notes and ideas and anything else, any other remarks during the workshop. For the first part, Sjef will be introducing the workshop concept, and he will present some background of his work of the Zoönomic Instrumentarium. So for this first period, if you can, please mute your microphones so we avoid any unnecessary disturbances. And then also one important thing, because this workshop is a hands-on thing when we are actually going to work with actual physical materials, feel free to take pictures and share them. Pictures like not just screenshots, but also of your working place, what you are making with your hands. I will share in the chat in a second a link to Google Drive, where if you can, you don't have to, of course, as if you can share your pictures there for Sjef and for us for the archive. And of course, you can also share those on any of the social media that we are occupying with Uroboros. I will share the hashtags that we are using. So if you want to be like fancy and use the hashtags, then feel free to do it as well. And then last but not least, we are all lucky here that we got into the Zoom event, but most of the events are actually fully booked. So for the future days, for the future events at the festival, if you want to attend, but it's full, you can also watch the live stream. It's so far been working pretty okay. So again, I will share the link to the YouTube Uroboros stream in the chat in a second. And last practical thing is that there will be like a quick break, like snack or toilet break in the middle of the workshop. So we can all go stretch and eat something or whatever. But that's it for the practical information. So I will now welcome Sjef and maybe give a little formal intro for him. So Sjef is a design researcher working in the emergent field between future studies, design research, and critical making. He's using in his research co-creative and participatory methods to explore alternative futures with a focus on multi-species futures and regenerative ecologies. And he's also an advisor to the Creative Industries Digital Culture Program in Netherlands. And he's also a collage artist, which you can see on his website, which is in his bio, on the Uroboros Festival website. So that's it from me. I will stop speaking and give the stage to Sjef.
Okay, I will start speaking. I think that means that I'm now appearing real big on everybody's screens. So hello, everyone. As generously introduced by Marketa, I am Sjef van Gaalen. And yeah, so as a design researcher, I kind of take a lot of stuff from future studies. I enjoy looking at the future and figuring out with people ways to tell stories about it and make things that can kind of change your perceptions around what possible futures can hold. And from there, potentially try to move on to some kind of strategic implementation of actual things that happen in the real world. So we're all here in this big Uroboros online experiment. I am also experimenting with new methods of running a workshop. you have hopefully all already signed up for Miro at this point and been given a link to the board. Can I get a thumbs up from everyone if that has happened? I'm seeing all of the thumbs going up. That's great. Otherwise, the link should be shared in the chat, I guess. Yeah, okay. And Marketa was mentioning sharing pictures. You can, of course, also share those straight into Miro. So feel free to poke around in the Miro board already. I will use it for a bit of presentation. But seeing as we don't have that many people in the group, a small group is kind of nice, really. As far as I'm concerned, we can also do brief introductions of everyone who is participating. So if you keep it a bit short and just tell us your name and where you're zooming in from and what you're doing in like about under a minute. I'll just do you in order that I can see you, which means we start with Lara. Can you unmute yourself and quickly tell us?
Hi everyone, my name's Lara. I'm a researcher. I'm zooming from East London. I work with Marketa, who's in this box on the Creatures project.
Yep.
But before that, I worked on a really interesting project called Algorithmic Food Justice, which was kind of experimenting with blockchain food futures, which is where I heard about your work.
Yep.
Sjef, so I was just really excited when this popped up in Uroboros. So I'm sort of, I've worked a lot on technology and repair, and now I'm thinking about other forms of regenerative practice, kind of beyond that. Thanks.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to the next box, which is Tamara. Got to unmute yourself. I mean, I can also force unmute you, but yeah, there we go.
Sorry, I forgot that I muted my mic. Hi, everyone. And first of all, thanks, Sjef, for this workshop. I'm so excited. I met Sjef on a conference last year, so I applied in a minute when I saw that you have a workshop. My name is Tamara, and I'm graphic engineering and design student in Novi Sad, Serbia. I'm currently finishing my studies, one exam till the end, but I'm a speculative design enthusiast, so I'm willing to learn as much as possible and to see how I can participate.
Okay, great. Next is Ines. Can you unmute? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ines. I'm zooming in from Amsterdam. And I'm a curator for the Impact Festival, and I am, where I saw, well, not at the festival itself, but one of our events, you were a guest, and I was a big admirer of your talk, and I'm curious about this workshop now.
Okay, thanks. Always nice to have talks appreciated. Next is Yutzi.
Hey,
Yes.
we also met last year, the same event. But hi, everyone. I'm Mishi. I'm working as an interaction designer here in Munich. But in my personal practice, I work quite a lot with machine intelligence and speculative design. So Sjef's work is quite interesting to me. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the workshop.
And then Tina.
Hey, I'm Tina. I'm currently in Berlin, and I'm just a graphic designer and curious what this will be about.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
You will see, because I will now spend the next, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, hopefully it doesn't take too long, explaining some of the background of this project. No, wait, before I do that, are you guys all in the Miro board yet in a different thing? Start playing around there if you want. But I will share my screen as soon as I find the Zoom window back. There we go. And share with sound. Yes, I'm just going to go this way. share and give you the formal presentation-y part of this whole workshop. So I'm doing this as a part of, the workshop is called the Zoönomic Instrumentarium, for everyone who's not yet aware. It's the 12th of May. We are all together at the Uroboros Design Festival. The Zoönomic Instrumentarium, nobody really at this point probably has much of an idea what that is. So this whole project is happening within the context of a much larger project that we're calling the Zoop. Zoop is a new word that we made up. It's a contraction of Zoe, the old Greek word for life, and co-op. So it's a zoonomic cooperation. And this is a long-term project that has been run mostly by Klaas Koutenbrouwer at het Nieuwe Instituut in Rotterdam. But a large team of people participating in this project, who are a diverse collective of designers, researchers, legal experts, soil builders, farmers. And what we're trying to do is create an entirely new recognized legal format, like the corporation. So this project is operating from a belief that we need to not only envision new radical alternatives to the current status quo of human, non-human interaction, but with the view that a more than human perspective that acknowledges interdependencies of life will allow us to have a more comprehensive, integrated, and sustainable not only imagination, but also implementation of climate resilient futures. We aim to do that through the Zoop with two goals. One is to strengthen the position of non-humans within human society, legally, and the other is to have it engender ecological regeneration. So the way that this works, and this has been workshopped out now at this point for almost 2 years, the way it will work, at least in the Netherlands legally, is that any existing organization that has, as we've phrased it, control over a volume of biosphere can become a Zoop. In practice, this mostly means food producers. Our pilot projects are mostly farms and food forests, but it could also potentially be a school or an office building or a hackerspace. And the way we've defined it, you could even have your own body be a Zoop. So an existing organization will partner with the Zoop Foundation, either by having them as a member on their board or through contractually forming a co-op with them. And together, because in the Netherlands, if you're formally bound, if you're a foundation, you're formally bound by your statutes, that binding forms what we call the Zoop. So we're still figuring out how this is going to work internationally, because in every kind of jurisdiction it will be different. But in the Netherlands, this kind of construction, where if an organization partners with a foundation, there are some legally binding statutes that works. The first one is likely to be a farm on the outskirts of Nijmegen in the Netherlands. We were supposed to have 2 pilot projects starting this year. Unfortunately, current events, in which you're all probably very aware, have delayed this. I'll make a note that you can also find links off the sides of these slides if you want to find out more information about these things that I'm just going to be throwing at you for the next couple of minutes. You'll also find the big background projects, the big background posts at the New Institute. The idea for doing this, for creating this new legal form, was inspired by legal developments such as the granting of personhood for the Whanganui River and Mount Taranaki in New Zealand, while at the same time we were seeing things happen like the Terra Zero project, where, although it was kind of conceptual art, ostensibly a forest would own itself by being given ownership of itself through a DAO, a distributed autonomous organization, and living and exploiting its own resources on the Ethereum blockchain. And so, as I said, a whole team of people has been playing with this idea and working out the formalities of it, and doing various kinds of artistic interventions and research for about a year and a half now. Today, we're not going to focus so much on the issues of personhood or representation of non-humans, because those are things that we have already spent several workshops talking about and could spend several more. Today, we're going to focus on this idea of the zoop being focused on ecological regeneration. And we specifically said growth. So how can we measure that? And how can we do so in a way that is useful and not ultimately damaging, really? And these instruments for measurements together are going to comprise the Zoönomic Instrumentarium, the Instrumentarium being represented by the little purple diamond or different colored green diamond in the middle of the circle there. The Zoönomic Foundation that any organization would partner with would have at its disposal, theoretically, a number of instruments for the measurement of ecological regeneration or the exploration of what that means and or the communication of why that would be a good thing and or what the results are. So you can think about, there are any number of projects, academic projects, agri-tech startups, etc., now figuring out ways to measure things like carbon and soil, etc. Just very nutrient flows, numbers-based ways of looking at how well the soil is doing or the ground is doing or plants are developing. And even within the Zoop project, there have already been a number of tools built and artistic interventions made. So I'm going to show you two of those and then talk about what we want to kind of progress with. So the first of these is Deep Steward. And for this, we're going to take the risk of showing a little video on screen. Hopefully everyone can see. Thumbs up, you can see the video.
This black ball is an observatory where you can enter a world. You physically stick your head inside and then you see a time lapse of the pond that we are focused on. In this pond there are all kinds of birds, but also tiny creatures that we cannot see. Monitoring this from various levels, satellite all the way down to microbial level. Then there's an artificial intelligence who is training on all of that footage to sort of release control of human perception a little bit and see what happens if you let an artificial mind make sense of a landscape.
A zoop strengthens the position of non-humans in human societies. At the same time, the goal of the zoop is that it leads to ecological regeneration.
So there you have the ideas of the zoop stated again, but so what Deep Steward is, this project by Toon Karelse and Ian Ingram that was installed at the U Institute, they they put together an AI that ran image recognition, but they didn't train it with any kind of classification, and they just let it train itself. So it would just figure out for itself what classes of objects were, give them names and classify them. And it came up with this very completely non-human alien classification. You can read a lot more about the thinking behind it, but you can follow this think later. The second instrument that's already in development within the Zoop project is called the Data Fusion Instrument, being developed by Space for Good, who work with publicly available satellite data, and they're putting together an instrument that will allow zoops to use publicly gathered satellite data to be able to get useful data, historical data that can be extrapolated from or worked with about their specific areas. But what you might notice about both of these projects is they're very technologically oriented. and they kind of have this charismatic technology element to them. Like one is AI and one is in space, which makes them good tools for promotion and communication around the Zoöp project. And they're interesting artistic inventions in some ways. But for the people who we work with who are just running community food forests or regenerative farms, the argument is to be made as well, is this really any better than just a person standing in the field looking at what the weather is like that day? Is this really a useful thing for them? So what we have talked about in previous workshops that we've done with the Zoöp team is the need for the development of a flock of instruments. Since every Zoöp, potential Zoöp, is so different and there's such a wide range of diversity, there is no real useful way to measure. The assessment of what we're calling zoonomic development can't be left to one standardized method. So we think it should always be approached applying a set of different instruments and or methods. There are a whole bunch of reasons why we think this, but basically we don't want to flatten biological diversity into one-dimensional numbers, and context is very important when measuring these things. New insights and ecological processes emerge constantly and lead to new methods of assessment, so we want to be able to adapt and adopt those and drop outdated ones as we move past them. Humans involved with these operations also can't act on the presumption that it's clearly established what is best for non-human entities. So we have to also think about the fact that all our modes of assessment will be subject to cultural, speciest, and temporal biases, which is unavoidable, but just needs to be acknowledged. The fact that important aspects of all the questions we're asking will always be unknown needs to be acknowledged. But we're taking the central belief within the project that with all the stuff that we try to measure and try to do, the responsibility of the humans towards the quality of life of the collective body of non-humans is always understood as a responsibility of care. Regardless of whether or not the humans are part of the Zoönomic Foundation, of the human organization, we're trying to make things better. Part of the festival theme of designing in these troubling times, how can we at least try to do some good? So technology has its place, but we want to make sure that its place is as a tool and not some kind of saving elements that we believe in. So what we're after is qualitative assessments using situated knowledge, tools for communication and interoperation, and not just for measurement. And a thing that we're particularly interested in for as we're moving forward and kind of want to focus on today as well is more than human assessments. So how can instruments work that perform quality assessments through non-human bodies, interpreting different kinds of behaviors from different kinds of species? How can we have methods of observation that actually transform the landscape while they're being performed? Questions like this. And so that's what we're going to talk about and throw things into a Miro board about for the next half an hour-ish. I'll take a couple of minutes if anyone has any very pressing questions. So ultimately, the Zoönomic Instrumentarium should embrace radical differences and present a spectrum of conceptual, practical, technological, and political tools to not only measure, but also communicate ecological growth. So these will be the tools that a foundation can use, that it can provide to the organizations that it partners with to enhance the quality of life for humans and the more than human webs of interrelation around them. What do we have left? Oh yeah, as Deborah Solomon quipped in one of the workshops, knowledge of ecology requires an ecology of knowledge. So we're going to make some attempt, not too seriously, mind you, with somewhat of a speculative and playful element in here, I hope, to try to figure out how we can take steps towards that and then make bad prototypes, no, great prototypes out of cardboard and duct tape to enact how we envision some of these things working. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second now. That was a lot of words that I just said. Is there anyone who has something that they would like to have detailed or more clarified before we move on for the next thing, or are you all happy to just keep rolling forward and see what happens? Just give me a wave. I can see all of you on the second screen here if you'd like to ask something. Everyone's remaining motionless. I'm going to take that as we're just going to keep moving on. Okay. So then I'm going to ask you all to stop looking at my face and open the Miro board instead. And we'll keep talking on here. And really at this point, because we're a smaller group, feel free to unmute yourself and jump in with questions and comments at any time. I don't think we need to police this super strictly. So, yeah, I see one person in the Miro has entered their name and changed the color. And other people are starting to show up. Okay. So, you can have a look around, but to the right of the introduction slide, there are some prompt questions. And actually, I am just going to start asking you guys these questions. And you can feel free to dump anything that you want into the Miro board in terms of pictures, texts, sticky posts. Because this is kind of an experiment for me as well, I'm also just looking at what people prefer to use and how we can move forward with this. So we have a number of pilot projects for the Zoöp, most of which are farms or food forests. So I would like to ask all of you if you can drop a comment or sticky notes. Do I need to put a pile of sticky notes in here? Out here in this area of the board that I just made pink, is there any specific area that you have in mind that you would like to work on? Maybe your backyard, maybe a school. I see 5 very confused looking faces. So Lara, do you have a suggestion for a location, something that could be worked on?
I can. I have a couple of ideas.
Yeah.
With Algo Food, we've been working with Spitalfields City Farm, and in my own work, sorry, I have got a young apprentice here for a second, just bedtime. I also have been doing some kind of I've been really interested in, because I work in human-computer interaction, that's kind of part of my belonging. This is a very fast field where people kind of throw prototypes or projects into the mix and kind of evaluate them over 3 weeks. So let's do a behavior change project and throw it out there, evaluate it for 3 weeks. And I think there's a real move within that field to think about how do we really think about the longer term and think about undesigning. So I've been looking at a mine site in Uganda, which is where my PhD work was.
Yeah.
And a friend worked also in that town. So he's kind of been doing some interviews with people who live. It's kind of a zombie mine. So it's kind of risen and fallen its fortunes with, first of all, under colonial occupation. It's a very old mine. And then in recent years, as the price of copper has soared, it's a copper mine. It's kind of been sort of re-emerged as part of a Chinese consortium, which again connects to this big story about kind of China and Africa and the kind of shifting geopolitical situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's sort of that kind of partnership fell apart due to corruption. So additionally, the whole of the mining area floods. There's a huge river through it. So they're just these periodic washings away. So for me, it's kind of about thinking about, you know, phytoremediation is a kind of recognized technique where we kind of plant plants as ways to kind of draw toxins out of the soil. And I think that's really important. But as I've been sort of thinking about as a sociologist and a kind of technologist, you know, what's my role here? So it's kind of a site to think through the kind of fortunes of the mine, and also to kind of think through, you know, what do I do? So I guess the Zoop is a really interesting project for me because it is really doing something. I mean, is it, you know, is it really that I would, you know, put together this interdisciplinary project around this mine and plant it up and kind of make those things happen? You know, what sort of would it mean to do that? So I've sort of become really attached to this place. Yeah, I'm sort of bound by all these kind of restrictions. So I think that would be a really good site. It's called Kilembe Mine.
Can you put that title in here?
I sure will, yeah.
I don't dare try to spell that.
There we go, Zombie Mine, yeah. Here.
Also, I was
Sorry.
thinking, Sjef, do you want to share the middle board where we are working, or is it better to look at our faces?
Share it publicly, you mean?
For the stream maybe, but we don't have to.
No, keep it for the people on the Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, so the mine is something super interesting to think about. Does anyone else in the Zoom room right now have a suggestion for a location? So one of these qualities of a Zoop is that it's not a fictional thing. This has to be, although we do run a workshop also where we make them completely fictional 40 years into the future, but they have to be tied to a volume of biosphere, like an actual place in space and time that we co-inhabit with the more than humans that we're trying to work with. So any of the other four you want to chime in? Nope. Okay. Is everyone interested then to proceed with the zombie mine? Because I think it's kind of an interesting case. Yeah. So this Zoop is situated, well, as Lara has just explained, in the Kilembe mine, the zombie mine. And where did you say it was?
It's in Uganda.
In Uganda. In Uganda. So in that zombie mine, how would you even go about measuring what ecological growth would be? What are, in that context, well, you named one of the disruptions, floods. Another one, I guess, is heavily polluted soils.
Yeah, there's massive tailings, waste materials in the local area, and that the kind of management of those is exacerbated by this big river that kind of floods and kind of the river just, it's a big wide river and it just grows and floods and washes the tailings. Let me see if I can find some pictures. I put an article in the Miro board.
That reminds me, it's more explanation. So, I am actually just going to ask each of the other heads in my Zoom, where are you all? To each suggest something that we could use to measure ecological growth. What would you consider an indicator? Ines, can you tell me what do you think we should measure? Or do you have any comments on whether or not we should be trying to measure anything at all? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm just going to do it now.
I don't know. Maybe, God, I don't know. Plant growth.
Not knowing is a valid answer.
Sorry?
Not knowing is a valid answer, but yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah.
But plant growth, yeah.
Toxicity levels, lowering toxicity levels, something like that.
Okay. So feel free to drop those ideas into the Miro board. Let's see if we can.
I'm just putting some photos in.
Of the sites, yes.
Yeah, so you can see the abandoned mine, and then this is one of the areas that the river floods. The white picture with the stones.
So if this place were to become Zoop and it was somehow recovering, how would we know that?
All right, one more pic and then I'll stop with the pics. I mean, I think people's local knowledge of the site would be really important here, because how we get at kind of long-term thinking, like if we're thinking about this very extended kind of interaction with the site, then the way that people remember how things were is really important. I used to work on a project called Citizen Sense, and I visited a Sami community, and we went for a walk through the boreal forest and through a number of rivers, and the Sami elders were able to say, you know, the water level used to be here, you know, and the brown trout were able to spawn on this gravelly area. You know, this is where the fish used to have their nursery. And the kind of, you know, in the absence of this tech first data, kind of that we don't have this big data set about particular sites. I think it's really interesting to think about how people who live there with the land in really deep and connected ways, not like I live in London, for example, but people who are subsistence farmers already know the soil in a much different way to a city dweller like myself. So I think, you know, as you spoke about before, the kind of situated knowledge and particularly the memories of the elders within the community would be really important to consider the kind of human lifetime.
So how would we then deal with a scenario that we're living through in which memory isn't necessarily relevant to what is to come? It may be that the climate changes to such an extent that the same, what was can't exist there in the same way. An entirely novel environment may be created through circumstance that we just have to live through. So how could that be mitigated?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that I'm interested to think with the mine is that it is an aftermath. Like, I'm a scholar of repair, and I'm interested in these places where, you know, I've always looked at kind of technology repair where you can take the cover off and slot in a new part. Like, there's, of course, there's a longer term story to that, because technologies are only designed, if they are designed to be repaired, it's only in a couple of year horizon. And obviously there's deep time impacts to the kinds of e-waste that we've created. But I think even in the aftermath, memories are important. Not because repair is about putting back, but that it's about deciding how to go forward.
Yeah.
Like, well, the Sami really would like to put their rivers back. They really would like to do that very direct repair.
Yeah. This was one of the reasons why within the Zoönomic project, we've specifically chosen to say regeneration and not restoration, because of the fact that some of these things can't be put back. And because of the way the landscape has changed, it may be that it might be a better option to put back something different. And then there's also the case of completely novel landscapes, like now all these mines have been dug out. What happens in those mines? Are there entirely new niches available there? If the mine itself is to become a zoop, what does it mean for there to be growth in the dead old empty mine? So, does anyone have any idea how we can, what would we do with a mine if you turn it into a zoop and we try to fast forward the clock 10, 30, 40 years into the future? What would it mean for a disused mine to be flourishing under the care of this foundation?
I don't want to talk too much. I'm going to leave the floor open to others.
I'd like to collect some suggestions from the others then, at this point. So if you take this imagination of, okay, now a disused mine in Uganda has become a zoonomic co-op. What can you do with this? If nobody unmutes themselves, I'm just going to point at the next person that I can see, which is Tina. Do you have any thoughts?
Feel free to change an example. This is quite an esoteric
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
to hit people with. Maybe
you
a city landscape is much more relatable, right? I feel like I've come out of nowhere with the mine.
Well, yeah, I like the mine. But yeah, if you have a different suggestion or it makes you think of a different place where the landscape has changed in an irretrievable way.
I don't know.
Have you seen it happen yourself at any point? Is there any kind of landscape that you've encountered where you think that this is so severely damaged, we should change it in some way?
I saw a lot of dumping grounds, but I think they are pretty damaged and probably change soon in 30 to 40 years.
Dumping grounds, you mean just as in human dumping grounds?
Yes, yes, exactly.
So what would you see them changed to that is, or what would you like to see them changed to that isn't a golf course? I guess that's right.
Can you say that again?
Often these things get turned into golf courses, no?
Golf courses, probably.
What would you prefer that it changed into?
I think I would prefer to be cleaned properly, not just put soil on top and wait until something regrows.
The golf course. Well, maybe the dump golf course is a more relatable example than the mine in Uganda. What means of non-human measurement might you be able to use to be able to tell if your dumping ground was going through some level of ecological growth?
I guess you could measure some bacteria maybe, or also maybe measure air quality or what kind of gases are around there.
Bacteria, air quality, gases.
You could measure what plants are growing there, regrowing.
And so all of the same things, I guess, could also be applied to the mine. Does anyone else have an idea how through, let's say, non-technological means or through using the senses of the non-human, we could assess whether or not this golf course was, this dumping ground was recovering and becoming something other than golf course? I might just start sharing my screen.
Maybe you can specify, like, give us some idea what else other than the golf course can be happening there. So it's like a bit less abstract.
So say we want to turn this dumping ground into just the most ecologically rich environment possible for the circumstances. So right now, I'm in Finland, so I guess the state for it to return to would be the forest that we have up here. What is the kind of natural state of this environment, whatever environment, that would enhance quality of life in the best way for both humans and non-humans? So how could we not only create an environment, how would we know that we were creating an environment in which the quality of life is enhanced as much as possible? Does that make it more specific for you, or is that still quite abstract?
Oh no, it is, I guess, specific. You can probably think about some, like the most like cliche example probably would be some community gardens, where you make the humans and non-humans collaborate on something that is very accessible. So, like speaking about Finland context, I can imagine that instead of having a huge golf course behind the house, which is sort of not accessible, not even for all the humans, but also because there is nothing much growing on it, it's also not accessible for many non-humans. So, and if you focus more on the interest of many rather than the interest of the few of the golfers, then you can turn it into something else. So I don't know, like the cliche example would be the community garden, for instance, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, and then you can also ask yourself, well, then for which community should the garden be? If we want it to be the best possible for a community of deer or foxes or rabbits or all of them instead of the golfers, that might influence what we're doing. But yeah, it's the question really is how would we know that we're developing it? The answer may very well be, an answer may be that it's a very blunt instrument where somebody would stand in the field and see that there were more rabbits, and by this they would know. How would we, what are other ways in which we could experience this, through not just standing there and counting, or how would you communicate it to others?
I'm thinking about questions of value because I live adjacent to the 2012 London Olympic site, which for a very long time was a big barren chunk of land that was polluted due to, I think, a railway yard on it. And because the Olympics happened, the kind of value of the site changed due to, you know, these kind of vast set of external political and economic factors. And the site was remediated by washing the soil. There's like a kind of path alongside the site, and you could see these amazing machines. They just looked like washing machines. And literally the soil was dug up and put into the machine and shaken with water and washed. So it was a really fascinating process to kind of be on the sidelines of, to understand kind of the efforts with which we kind of instrument a place, kind of correspond with these questions of political economic value that kind of swirl around the site. So if we were a community garden, you know, we would count worms and we would be working with the soil because we, you know, in Spitalfields Farm, for example, the materials produced by the animals are used to enrich the soil, and the kinds of relationships that are already around sites. So kind of looking at the soil, how aerated is it? How rich is it? What have we been doing to it? What worms are there? would be kind of really common in the kind of community garden thing.
Yeah.
And then in these big kind of mega sites with a big mega project, it would be like this chemical testing, this kind of lab-based health and safety regime, I can imagine. Actually, a friend's partner worked on the site and said something like the kind of figure that site was remediated for was a 7-year-old girl, because her body carried the kind of legacy and future of the kind of human-centric generations, in terms of being like a growing body that's kind of open to toxicity, and a fertile body. So I think it's really interesting to think about how the instruments would be different in different sites.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there, especially with that, the link for the 7-year-old girl. Yeah, the different instruments for the different sites is a good idea for us to kind of focus on now. What would specifically differentiate these three things? The zombie mine. What are the values in at play in the zombie mine? Let's just call it the golf course, and the 2012 Olympic site. And I guess what popped into my mind while you're saying that worm counting is a big thing. What we're trying to get at with this instrumentarium is, so how would we ask the worms what they think about it? And maybe you just count them in the soil, but hey. So worm counting, would it even work in the zombie mine of the golf course?
I'm thinking also about mentioning the worms and then the human body that Lara mentioned before.
Yeah.
Just to think like this phenomenon of the helminthic therapy, where you are like breeding worms, like specific species in your gut, in order to enhance the diversity of your digestion system. But in a way, it really reminds me of taking or like tending to a garden, where you are in a close collaboration with the worms, because you are really like growing them in your own body, and they just live there happily, right? And they should make you more happy as well, because they can like people with Crohn disease, for instance, are undergoing it, but I think it's illegal in most of the countries. But there are many like Facebook groups where people discuss it. So that can be also like some kind of, maybe it can go on the board as well, just this very intimate caring, where you have to ask the worms, or you need to know the opinion of the worms, because they are living inside of you.
Yeah.
So if you don't make the worms happy, then you are not going to be very happy.
Yeah, we've talked quite often about the idea of the human body as a zoa, but that's always been with the idea of, well, we're made up out of, we have a microbiome and all these viruses, bacteria, etc., that grow within us. But this makes that example extremely concrete. Yeah, when you're actually purposefully growing a colony of worms in your guts. And yeah, are the worms even happy living there?
I mean, yeah, sure, of course. Like maybe they are absolutely not happy, but you feel better anyway.
But you feel better, yeah.
But
that does seem
well,
to be
like if they are totally not happy, they just die. So that's a big risk with this therapy, because if they die, you just like poop them out, and then it's not good for anyone. You bought some worms, you ate them, and goodbye. The worms are like, okay, I just wasted my life, and you ate them and nothing happened, So I guess they must be somehow happy. Also, of course, what do we know? What does it mean for a worm to be happy? But
yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
the worm.
So for this particular example, we have a very good indicator of the health of the zoop, which is, are the worms alive? That's the primary one, but maybe there would be some, if there would be some instrument through which to measure or better communicate with the worms, then you might even be able to find more complex ways of interacting with them, right? If you could make the worms feel a certain way, it might help you feel a certain way. And I guess that would extend to our other sites as well. So the presence of worms is a fairly good indicator there of whether or not your zoop is healthy. So what are the indicators for the zombie mind? What would need to be there or come back? Is there anything specific to that area that would be showing that that area is really regenerating?
I probably don't know enough about the species around the zombie mind to say that it would be, this is the indicator species or this is the sentinel. But certainly those are ideas that we can look for particular, we can tell water health by observing who's living in the river. Have they got two heads? Do they look healthy?
Head count, yeah.
Are they going through the cycle of life? Are they able to spawn and to reproduce?
And maybe how to, like, so these are criteria that we are creating still to measure the non-humans. So is there a way how to include those in the decision processes, or in, like, you know, in the process of setting up the criteria as well?
Yeah. That would be the question. Can we come up with ways to do that? Yes.
Yeah, maybe it's the animal situated knowledge. Maybe we need to ask the animal elders, right, instead of the human elders.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
It's the animal elders instead of the human elders. So all we need is a device to talk to the animals. It'll be easy. So we need to talk to worms and animal elders. And I suggest that we take a 5 to 10 minute break now. And then when we come back, we're going to figure out how to prototype some instruments to talk to worms and our animal elders to ecologically restore a zombie mind and your gut biome. So I'm going to jump out of here. Well, I'm just going to stop sharing my microphone for a while and disappear over there to have a drink of water. I suggest you do the same, and let's say that we convene here in 5 minutes at 10 past 9.
10 past 8.
Yes,
Eastern
10 past
European
8
time.
in the Central Eastern European, Eastern summertime.
Yeah, okay. So in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
See you here, people. Hello back. Did you regenerate in the meantime?
We are back. Is everyone back? Let's see. Oh, there's another person. There we go. There's a bot, and hi, there is a new person that I have not seen before. Who is Michelle? Do I know that? Who Michelle is? Well, you can unmute yourself and say hi if you like, but you can also just sit there. Hi. I'm just going to assume that you're also in the Zoom room. So let's do part 2 of this whole thing. So after a rocky start in part 1, I'm going to share my screen now and go to optimize share, yes, desktop 2. I am now screen sharing. So what I would like to do for the second part of this workshop is split you up into 2 groups. We are going to have, if you guys, yeah, you can see my middle thing. We're going to have a golf course group, the relatable rubbish dump that is a golf course that we would like to see transformed into something else. And we are going to have the worm therapy community. Margareta, can you tell me what was it called again? Herma something therapy?
Almintic, but you can just call it wormies.
Wormies.
Yes.
Wormies. So we have wormies. We have renegade golfers. Some anarchist collective has squatted the golf course. They do not agree with this designation. We're going to split this up into 2 groups. So if all of you can type your names or take your name box from the introduction window over here and drag yourself under, oh, it's a long way to drag, but we can do it, into one of the groups so that our tech person can put one of the groups into a breakout room. So I see Marketa is going with the wormies.
Of course.
That was name. Lara is on her way. Yeah. Approaching. What will she decide? Wormies and golfers. Well, while you all figure out which group you want to drop yourselves into, if everybody ends up in wormies, then I see Ines is still undecided up there. What will happen? So what we're going to do now is just take the speculation of this community and spin it up and move it forward in time. So each of these groups, the golfers and the wormies, you're a zoop community. You are humans who are co-constituting a community together with the more than humans that you live with. In the case of the wormies, you are keeping colonies of worms in your gut. In the case of the golfers, we are going to accelerate beyond the simple remediation of this golf course to making it the most rich possible ecosystem that you could possibly create in that golf course. So fast forwarding this idea, either of these ideas, 50, 60 years by which you can use as magical technology as you like, as far as I'm concerned, how far can you push this idea in terms of what would it mean for you to be communicating with the non-humans with whom you co-constitute this community? And how are you talking to them about what it means to be the richest possible community of life with the highest quality of life that you can have as a group together? So wormies, there are 4 of you are going to get dropped into a breakout room to do this. And golfers, who is me and Inez, is that everyone?
Nobody wants to play golf.
Nobody wants to play golf.
Oh, I can
Tina
join
still
the
has to choose.
golfers. Shall I join the golfers and even up?
If you're volunteering, if you are betraying our
I'm
wormy group.
Yeah, I'm going to betray the wormy group then in the interest of symmetry.
I know if somebody's coming to mess the symmetry up. Okay, so I'll check in. Wormies are going to get put in a breakout room. There's Mish. Yes, no, going to the wormies. Who knows what will happen? So the thing that I have really not worked out how to do yet, the thing that I like doing in workshops is collectively creating prototypes to have some idea of these weird technologies and kind of have something to sit around collectively. However, we now cannot sit around collectively. So I hope that each of you has some kind of material at home with which you can create some kind of embodied representation of what you think the technology that you come up with in the end will be. I guess the best we can do now is take pictures of it and dump them in the Miro board as well. But let's see how we get along. So if I can ask Anna to dump the wormies into the breakout room.
Okay, so I will put wormies in breakout room and let golfers here.
Yeah. I think that's the plan. So the wormies is me, Yushi, and Tamara.
Yes. So I look forward to hearing and or seeing.
Okay. You want to set up sometime, or maybe when you decide it's over, I can broadcast a message for wormies to return.
Okay. What
Give
time
us
is
some
it now? It's 20 past. Let's say it'll be a quick session. Well, let's give it 25 minutes. Let's say 25 minutes. And then everyone can come back and the wormies can tell the golfers what they did. And we will tell you what happens.
So I will open them.
Yeah,
a second.
Okay, so they're disappearing off into a breakout room, and we are left with Lara and Inez, right? Is that everyone who's in here?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And Mish is still here as well. You guys are both unmuted. Great. Okay. Yes, so if we are the anarchist No More Golf Collective Zoop, turning the clock forward and assuming that we have amazing development of the Zoop, what would we like to be seeing the golf course become, given, well, let's say that we make it an intergenerational question. So what would be the plan for the golf course for the first 5 years, then for the next 20 years, for the next 50 years until children become grandparents? How would you, what would you want to see changed? How are we going to evolve this golf course?
So is the golf course still got the rubbish dump underneath, or it's just a bona fide golf course now?
I think the golf course still has the rubbish dump underneath. Yeah, there's a thin veneer of green that's kind of been smeared over the top. It's legally being remediated, or it's, if you just play golf on it, you won't grow, you know, a sixth toe that quickly.
So yeah, let's have those 6 toes developed, and that's what I would want to
just
see.
go ahead. You want to lean into the mutation.
I wanna see what happens if you leave it alone. If you really let it do its own thing. I was thinking about the when she mentioned the waste, the dumping grounds. I was thinking of the Bracken of Berlin. They're called the empty spaces, ones that are left alone between, you know, how there in Berlin there were bombed out sites, so there were wastelands between buildings that are never filled in, and it's one of the few that actually has a really high biodiversity. Yeah, more than any other place, because it's just been left alone, and I would like to see it left alone. And
so,
yeah,
your strategy for the golf course
for now, for the next 5 years maybe.
Oh, okay. So strategy next 5 years, just leave it alone. Actually do nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
it's the
I like
laziest
that
answer.
I think that's a great idea. And of course, the Olympic site belonged to the wildlife before us humans came and built loads of weird stadiums and a massive shopping center on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows, there might be new organisms there that we would, you know, just be, for the sake of purity or some sort of romantic idea of what nature should be like, we remove, even though it could have benefits, or I don't know, just the value of its own.
So basically you're saying that we just observe for these 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah, and don't play golf on it.
And play golf on it? Or
don't play golf on it.
Don't play golf on it. Okay.
I hate golf.
Yeah, we live close to a golf course here, and it does not seem to be the most biodiverse habitat.
Not for humans either.
No. What would what is your expectation? You're just going to see what happens, right? But I assume that you do still, there's something that you would like to see happen.
I want to see new organisms develop from, if the soil is so very polluted, then maybe, you know, something will mutate, as you proposed.
Yeah. So we want to see the new mutations that arise from the toxic waste dump that we've built this golf course on. Do you have any idea what could develop?
Are we closing it? We're assuming that we're kicking all the golfers out and we're letting it go wild?
We're kicking the golfers out, yeah. Armed patrols.
Okay.
Well, armed with
love.
how could we facilitate a because we are trying to institute a community of life, right? So what kind of non-human interactions, what kind of animals could you have living in the space that would prevent the golfers from returning if we take an active stance in it? How are we going to do
Maybe
this?
a mutated creature would do it, no?
Well, what kind? I guess, you know, insects mutate pretty quickly, but what would serve to keep the humans away?
Yeah, like a really massive, you know, what those massive wasps they have now, the Japanese
massive wasps.
Yeah. You know, those murder hornets or something they're called. Yeah, the murder hornets.
Murder hornets. Okay, toxic murder hornets. massive wasps, murder hornets. I think there's like a mind map tool in Miro that I really should be using right now, but it's okay. Either of you can feel free to type things as well, and or if you have a picture of a murder hornet.
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah, dump that in there. There's this little uploady icon here. So if you have some murder hornets. So our strategy for the next 5 years is murder hornets. I'm pretty happy with that. How do we measure the well-being? How do we take care? Because as humans trying to protect this golf course space, our responsibility is to care for the non-humans with which we're partnering. How do we assess the well-being of the murder hornets?
I'm just sorry. I'm just.
Oh yeah, you're. It's grab an important picture. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Murders. Okay.
We can make habitats for them, put materials that they like around.
So do the murder hornets just like murdering?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I thought they were there to keep the golfers out, so you know, maybe.
Yeah, okay. But does that mean, is it like having a pet vampire where we have to let them occasionally murder a golfer?
Yeah, it's a worthy cause.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Occasional murders for worthy cause.
Yeah.
How do we know when the murder hornets have satiated their need for murder?
Maybe they'll become peaceful, you know, maybe they give up their aggressive ways and you know, start meditating. No, but yeah, I'm curious about animal interaction. You said this earlier as well, like how do we talk to the worms?
Mm-hmm.
And I was reminded of a project of an artist called Kathy High. She made this project about rats, lab rats, and she wanted to communicate more with them. She found out that you can record their laughing, and it's not something that sounds anything like human laughing, but she learned from a behavioral scientist that this is actually the sound that rats make when they're, you know, having a pleasurable experience.
When they're actually happy. So you can measure the rat's well-being by their laughter.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, maybe, you know, you can measure whatever it is that these animals find pleasurable, and this would be the measurement of her happiness.
So pleasure as a measure.
Or, well, okay, yes, maybe that's the simplest way, but I don't, yeah. What other way would you suggest?
The question would be is how can we measure that? So do you think murder wasps would have an audible laughter? How do wasps communicate anyway, in general? Do they have like tap codes like bees, or?
Yeah, I think so, but there must be some sort of sound they make. I don't know.
We can patrol the area to spot their nests, and then we'll know something about them. Where they live, go to their house.
So how? Well, the nests. So for the first 5 years of defending the golf course, we need a device or a way to figure out if our murder hornets are having a good time, having a high quality of life. Surely murder hornets need other things in life than just murders, or do they?
I don't know. It's a nice occupation. I don't know. Maybe they want to breed and they want to build colonies.
Okay, checking this. Breeding, colony building. Let's figure out what. So what are we going to do after 5 years, though? What is the strategy for the 20 years after that? Because now we have a slowly regrowing golf course that is completely overpopulated with thriving murder hornets. There were also humans in this partnership. How do we live with the murder hornets over a 25-year time frame? Like what is it that has enabled us to walk amongst them while golfers get murdered?
Well, at least they have, they're humans are the most murderous creatures, so at least they have that over us. So, we're on an even playing field. So maybe that is the good basis for communication.
Okay. So
I mean, maybe in 25 years' time, we're going to be over the 2050 in the UK. We have to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. That's enshrined in law now.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for the methane that's coming out of our golf course? Does that mean we have to find a way to remediate the methane that's coming from the rotting rubbish?
We probably do. I'm not sharing the screen at the moment, am I? We're just all talking straight into the screen. Yes, we are. Yeah. Let's share the screen for a little while again.
I think we need some methane monitoring in there.
Methane monitoring. So is there an animal-based way to do methane monitoring or methane removal for that matter?
Not to my knowledge.
No, we just need to have sensors then.
I think we might need sensors.
Well, how can we use the murder hornets for this in any way?
Yeah, how can we connect? I mean, it's their territory now, so we're wrestling with the murder hornets for control, for remediation. Can we leave it is the question, I guess. Our initial strategy was to leave the site, but after 25 years, are we still gonna leave it?
Well,
I guess that's the question.
I had made the assumption here that this was a case of cohabitation. So that, yes, at some point we would have to figure out how we could coexist with the murder hornets. So I'm thinking there might be other relationships necessary in order for this to be a healthy ecosystem of some kind. So do we have any idea what would be a good companion species maybe for the murder hornets?
Like a predator or more?
Perhaps. a predator or a parasite or a host for that matter.
We should listen to the murder hornets. I think we should put more sensors so that we can hear their vibrations.
Yes. That's why we need to drop it.
Not wanting to censor up the place totally, but it would be good to listen to them.
Let's see. Oh, we were going to go back in 5 minutes. So can we, with the 5 minutes that we have remaining, create a speculative prototype for a tool with watch to listen to the murder vibrations of the hornets and find out if the laughter is just their maniacal murder lust laughter, or can actually lead to some kind of peaceful coexistence with our golf course murder wasp colony.
Hey, I brought the kids sculpture stuff.
Oh damn!
We could go to the old school yogurt pot.
Listening device.
Listening, yeah, nice.
Listening device.
Yeah, I have a nice roll of yellow duct tape here. Which
yeah, I was gonna say I have duct tape too. It fixes everything.
Shall we all take what? It's 41 now. I think we're going to come back in 45. So let's each take 3 minutes to create a listening device for what we have here.
Okay.
And take a picture.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go check on the other room if I can move myself there. Okay. Oh no, it's not showing my listening antenna. Damn you, virtual background.
Good.
Okay, so how did you guys get on with your 3 minutes of distributed?
Yeah,
Made a hat.
Okay.
For the murder hornet, so it's uniquely adapted for their needs.
I've gone with a camouflage strategy.
Nice.
Mine picks up the vibrations and then sends them with neurons to my head, my brain, so I can, yeah, because they buzz, right? So it's the vibrations that are picked up by them.
Awesome.
Excellent. So I'm trying to figure out how I drag all of the other people back in here. Because our tech person who was actually able to do all of this stuff is in the other room. So
Can you message them?
I can't message them. Huh. We're all just stuck here without them, and we're the people being live on stream as well. So that's good.
Oh, no.
Like, say hi to everyone watching us.
To be live on YouTube with my device.
Okay, I'm going to figure out how to get these people back in here. Just a second.
Right enough. You can't message them when they're in a breakout room. That's a bit weird.
There must be a way.
Okay. Oh, wait, I wasn't even muted. Yeah, some off-screen technical mitigation. Yeah. Well, let's see. I might share my screen again. So I'm curious what these other people have done, but oh, we can just go look, can't we? Yeah, let's do that. I'll share my screen. Let's go to that desktop over there. Hey, let's see if I did. The wormies.
We can message them in Miro, can't we?
Yeah, we can. That's good.
Come back. Oh, I think Anna is back, you know?
Everyone's back.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, we're back. Sorry, we had 25 minutes, no? So we were like using...
Oh, you're maximizing your time.
25 minutes.
That's good. So, how did you guys get along? We even managed to do a 3-minute prototyping session. So,
It's good.
yeah. Do you want to share your screen and show us where you got?
I think that you can see it on the mirror board that you just shared.
Okay, I'll just share mine, and then
I wanted to
drop
more pictures, but it was too much multitasking. But
okay.
if you give me a second, I will find it and drop it on the board as well. So maybe you can start with your group.
Okay, sure. Does either of you want to do the commentary, or shall I run through it? Lara, can you please?
Yeah, sure. So we decided that we were anarchist golfers, but we still have our rubbish dump under the soil. So we decided to kick off the other golfers, and our strategy was to do nothing, to just pause and let the golf course stroke rubbish landfill site just do its thing. We saw new organisms develop, new mutations happen in the bacteria. We decided to kind of adopt a companion species of murder hornets, so 2020, that we would use as a kind of built-in security system for the site, so that they would go and sting and potentially murder any regular golfers that decided to stray onto the golf course territory. We talked about some other projects where we would try to commune with the murder hornets in different ways, to record them. What would they understand as pleasure? How do they laugh? How might we learn to tune into them? We did put some sensors up to listen to their vibrations, but we didn't want to ascribe lots of the jury's still out on how we record the murder hornets' laughter. We decided to keep the golf course as it was, even though there was a lot of pressure on us to dig it all up, because it's releasing a lot of methane. And in 25 years' time, now we're in 2055, so we're supposed to be net zero carbon emissions in the UK. So we're having a lot of pushback on the methane that's coming out of our site, but we're still keeping it for the murder hornets. So we came up with our own devices to commune with the murder hornets.
Yes, so we had a 3-minute prototyping session. I've made a murder hornet listening device that my virtual background will not really show you. I've gone with a camouflage strategy to not get murdered by the hornets, as you can see. And here are the sensors with which I can perceive their maniacal laughter as they ritually slaughter anyone who trespasses on their golf course. Yeah, that's the first result.
What about the golfers? Nobody cares.
Well, they were sacrificed as a worthy cause.
I took a historical approach. I adapted the pre-Zoom communication to this is adapted for human ears, and this chamber is specially adapted for the wasps. The murder hornets. This species thing, and for the murder hornets to enter, so that I can sense their vibrations. And I feel that Ines is the best.
No. I made a hat which picks up the buzzing, and it connects straight to my brain, so I am able to connect to the buzzing directly and communicate like that.
So these are our strategies for
Very handy.
listening to the murderous vibrations of the death hornets, for cohabitating with them. But of course, while that's all good and fun laughs, we did hit on one of the core issues of humans trying to decide all of these things within a zoop when we went and laughed about the occasional murder of a golfer for a worthy cause. Because this is always happening, right? With there's, when trying to grow things like this, there's this continual process of having to decide who lives and who dies. And we as humans generally think that we're the force that gets to determine that. And that's one of the big fraught issues of this whole idea of measurement and what to measure and what can go wrong with it. So, but I'm curious to hear the story of the wormies. Does any of you want to go ahead and narrate what happened there? Oh, wow. Look at this.
I think we can present it somehow collaboratively, but maybe if you can
do you want me to share screen?
Probably it's better if you can share it. It's the same screen. And
let's share that. Yes.
Proves to be non-glitchy.
Yeah.
So, you know, like we were like, ours was much more intimate, but I guess that already starts from the topic. Ingesting wormies and building your own garden in your gut and becoming a gut gardener. But Tamara started with a very good like kick-off point, mentioning how the species change during like nuclear catastrophes and wars in some specific area, which changes both like the flora and fauna outside of you and inside you. So that really brought up the theme, like we are lucky to, you know, be born and raised in countries that were both very close to Chernobyl. So we are both like these hybrids now that were altered by the nuclear explosion or like disaster already. So then that just led to this whole cycle of there was always some kind of desire to be able to like open yourself, you know, and look into yourself and know what's going wrong, because you are always told by some doctor that you know, you either like you have a genetic problem or there is just something that doesn't work in your microbiome or something like that. So we were thinking about how to build some kind of device that would enable you to do that. And actually, I noticed that in the helminthic therapy group that I mentioned before, which is like those people who like really do the wormies for real, it's a big issue as well, because there is no, as far as I know, like no simple, clear way how to discern if the worms living inside of you are still alive, if they are doing something, or you know, they're moving. So we really like got into this whole cycle of how to communicate with the wormies that we have already ingested. And it was a lot of like, yes, we even had this connection to art eventually. See, the art and science is connecting again. We like were thinking about, remember the project by Stellark when in 1998, like he swallowed the camera and the camera was recording the journey through his intestines. Just something that is probably used normally for like endoscopic surgeries. But anyway, so like that was just a side note that we put there. But through all this whole talking, we basically came to the point of like how important is it to have like two-way care, two-way communication, and two-way conditioning as well. So first, you know, we started like as humans thinking about, so how can we like train the worms to give us a signal that everything is fine, so we can like drop some kind of pill into our guts, like swallow something that will like trigger the wormies, and you know, we will like provoke some kind of reaction. But then also we realized that the wormies are basically conditioning us because they are changing our gut flora and everything, right? So then we just got into this loop of talking about how to do it, like really, not just only in the fiction way, but how to like enable this two-way communication, which I guess was the main question that, you know, you were asking.
Yeah.
With this whole exercise basically. But it might sound lame, but our big finding is that, well, regeneration takes time. Because whatever we came up with was like, yeah, but that just like, you will need a lot of time, and you will actually need to live some kind of symbiotically with the wormies in order to have some kind of intimate system of communication with them. So it's like there is no way to design like magic machine or something that will do it, because it probably won't. Like, you don't need a magic machine. All you need is just like time and like that, you know, the patience to care about those wormies and figure out and try to build the ecosystem for them, which may require you to, like, you know, change what is happening around you. It probably depends on what is the quality or humidity of the air and temperature of the air around you. And then you go into this much bigger problem of how do you influence global temperature? Well, you can't really, but maybe you can as human.
You know,
so,
we could dump tons and tons and tons of CO2.
Yeah.
That might do it. Yeah.
But the long story short is, like, after all, we didn't even start prototyping like fun heads or something, because we just got like pretty serious.
But that's good. Result from the workshop.
I think the last shout out from Tamara was, hey, maybe we can like put the camera inside of the worms. So that was the last, and that opens the question: do wormies like to eat cameras? Because of course you can't. Like, that's crucial, right?
Can't just force them.
No, because then you will not build equal relationship at all. So.
Well, then this is a suitable title for the next workshop,
I guess.
Okay.
Maybe somebody else, I don't know. I just, after all, summarized the whole thing. So I don't know, Tamara, do you have something to add?
No, I think you covered it. I was playing in the meantime with some paper and made a worm with camera inside.
Okay, great. Wait, let me stop sharing so that we can see this.
So Tamara is bringing our group to next stage.
Like this orange thing is warm, and inside of it is small camera. You cannot really see it through this, but yellow thing inside is camera, and
there we go.
Travels through us.
Paper prototyping achieved. Okay, I think that's our time. Thanks everyone for showing up for the workshop and participating. Are there any further closing comments or questions that anyone has?
We can stay a little bit longer because we are the last event. So there's nothing else in the, like, you know, we probably all need to like go eat and stuff, but we don't have to rush. So I don't know, it would be, I was thinking that it would, like, there definitely is some kind of connection between the two scenarios, you know.
Yeah, there's certainly this element of massive human disruption where you have the nuclear wartime and we have the toxicity of the dump forcing these mutations.
Mm-hmm.
So did you guys think about, because wasn't in Chernobyl, weren't worms one of the things that mutated the most quickly?
Sorry, say it again.
In Chernobyl, weren't worms one of the things that mutated the most quickly? This is what I remember from being 9 years old and watching a documentary.
I think it was mushrooms, but maybe it was worms. I don't know. But yeah, well, that was the problem, right? Like, that's also the irony of, like, now when you are living in this Eastern European country, or like in that area, you are like ordering over internet some illegal worms from tropical countries, so you can enhance the diversity of your gut flora. Because there is nothing local anymore that can actually help it. But it's, in a way, I don't know, I'm trying to find some kind of connection between your poor golfers that you just killed and you didn't care about them. Because I'm sure, like, I don't like golf at all myself, but I have a few friends who like do it. I don't understand it, but they do it. And I like them, so I don't want them to die, you know. So I'm kind of like, I'm quite like concerned with your approach, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that you should probably take care of the golfers like a little bit like more sensitively, same as we about our wormies, you know. I don't want to be like.
This is a highly concerning community. I have to agree with you there. several ethical issues with the idea of harboring a colony of murder wasps in order to regenerate a golf course. Yes. We'll have to admit to not having thought through the other interrelationships that this community would have to engage with. Yeah, which I guess goes to show that these things are always slightly more complex also than any of these fictional scenarios can encompass. But yeah, it's the purpose of these workshops, I guess, is to kind of surface these things a little bit.
But so what do you, because I don't want to keep us much longer, but is there a way how we can somehow like develop on this, or like we can all access the board still, that's for sure. But
yes. Well, for the first part, if people are interested in actually following along with the real developments and the real world development of the Zoop, there's a mailing list that you can subscribe to. The link is also floating around in the Miro board to find it back, and I'm sure it's been dumped in several chats as well. So that would be the predominant place, and on the website of the new institute there will be an ongoingly updated as the project progresses Zoop web magazine. Because while we've had this fun short workshop, there will also actually be longer term projects and interventions being done around this theme of expanding this instrumentarium, where we, as we did with our golf course, these will be longer term, at least over several months, and people will first be sitting and waiting and observing and taking the time to actually see what happens in these sites, to catalog what's going on and really think it through before they start to remediate the problem of golf with murder wasps. Okay, so yeah. So that would be that. Just follow along with the real actual project. Yeah. This is probably the best way to keep engaged with it.
But I would like to see our wormies as part of your project now. So can you do something about that? No, I'm meaning, like, is there a way how this whole thing can be reflected on in the Zoop, or, you know, something like that? Maybe we can think about it in the Miro board, it would still be open.
We can also just keep developing the Miro board and build the idea out, yes.
And we all have your email, I guess, because it was in your presentation?
Yeah, I've emailed you all, so you can all email me back. Yeah.
Good.
I have to admit, this inspired me so much. I started to think about so many places where there were probably some influences on the other non-human species. And right now I'm looking for my whole country in my head. As I mentioned in my group in Bosnia, there was a war, and after that there is much of minefields which are never removed, and bombs and so on. Yeah. And for example, it occurred to me that there are a lot of bombs in the rivers because they say that it's too complicated to remove them. And now during this workshop, I was thinking about it, like, we don't even know the influence of those rivers, or we don't know what happened with fish or species that live there, or with people who drank that water for years and so on. And this really inspired me in my head. There's like a ton of more stories.
Yeah, we would also be excited to see once we start building out pilots of this place, of all of these places, of this organizational form, to see other people trying to implement it in other places and figure out how far it can actually be taken and what turns out to work and what doesn't. Oh yeah, you're back. You seem to have frozen there for a second.
Yeah, my internet thing every few minutes. And sorry, I didn't hear what did you say now.
We would be excited to see other locations for the project. starting to develop. So yeah, that would be cool. Any other comments? Oh, I'm echoing now. Before we shut it down? Not, then thanks all of you once again for participating.
Go Wormies.
Thanks, that was super.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you very much. So
This
was
stop the
awesome.
stream now.